All right. Again, good morning, everybody. Thank you for jumping on this second in a series of four classes in this next round of Rechat training. Today we're going to focus on something a bit more, I would say, functional. A lot of the classes are really designed around basically business processes and how to set up, a business process, a system, and really start to um, implement good behaviors to build a better business and just leveraging the technology, in this case, Rechat, to help enable that. Today, we are going to get into more of the functionality of the platform, specifically around tailoring templates. So this is going to be a follow-on to last week's training session. In fact, that's how these four classes are designed. They really kind of build upon each other. Before we get into that, does anybody have any questions? I don't know if all of you were on the training last week. I can't recall, but does anybody have any specific questions or things that they're hoping to get out of today's training? Is 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 anybody hearing me? All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started then. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Um, Entire screen. All right. Perfect. Control. There we go. All right. And let me close this up here. So yes, thank you for acknowledging. You hear me? Appreciate that. All right. So, as I said, we're going to get into today's session. It's all about personalizing a template. And the reason that I wanted to take us in this direction is that we spent a lot of time last week, if you did participate in the training, about talking about developing an impactful marketing campaign. And when I say campaign, I didn't really, give a lot of context around that. A campaign can be very extensive. It can have multiple steps and run over a period of time, or a campaign can be something as simple as, an email that gets sent out for a specific purpose. So when I use the term campaign, I just want you to understand that, it could be very narrow and very specific, or it could be a bit broader. But anyway, the things that we're going to talk about today apply regardless of, the campaign type that you're building. Anyway, the goal is to just show you today how to take one of the standard templates that are in Rechat and really be able to tailor that, customize it to a degree so that it really emphasizes and delivers the message that, in theory, you have already created as part of, the training that we did last week. So go ahead. Thanks. All right. So again, I always like to reinforce the message here that the goal of these sessions is not to teach you how to use technology. The goal is really to help you build a more sustainable and thriving real estate business by incorporating, implementing systems, processes, and more importantly, habits that ultimately drive long-term success. The technology is just a way to enable or to accelerate those processes and support you along the way. So, just a recap of where we left off last week. So, the big message, the big takeaway last week was that every campaign that you are building and going to be launching really needs to have three essential components: audience, value, and action. So we want to know specifically who we're communicating with before we launch any campaign. We want to understand and have defined what is the useful information, the perspective, or the opportunity that we want to share with the recipient as part of this campaign. And then, most importantly, we want to define what action we want them to take. Because without that, basically all you're doing is just providing information and you're not sort of prompting your recipient to do anything with that information. And that's the whole point of a marketing campaign. I mean, just think about any commercial that you see on TV or hear, you see on social media or wherever. There's always some call to action at the end because they want the advertiser, the marketer wants you to do something with the information that they just provided to you. This is no different. So as you're thinking about a campaign, think in terms of these three components all the time. So today we're going to use these three components. We're going to use the things that we developed last week, and now we're going to take those and put them into basically the vehicle that is going to deliver the message that we want. And so again, I always like to emphasize, why does any of this matter? I'm very fond of saying, well, so what? Why are we doing this? Why does this matter? And the reality is that, most templates, whatever you're using, even frankly, the templates that we have in Rechat right now, most templates are intentionally designed for a broad audience. They're not designed for specific messages in a way that we're talking about here. And, used as is, they can be okay, but they're going to oftentimes feel generic and they're going to be easy to overlook by the receiver because guess what? Like you and like me, they're getting bombarded every single day with all kinds of marketing messaging, whether it's from you, whether it's from other agents, or just in general. So it's really imperative that what you are delivering has to be unique. It has to have some sort of differentiation that's going to make them take notice. The opportunity for that, of course, is that with just a few intentional changes with any template, and we'll go through some of those today, um, you can make the message feel more timely and relevant to that individual. It becomes a much more personal message without building an email from scratch every single time you want to send something out. Of course, the risk is if you do that, but the message does not clearly connect, provide value, or invite a specific action, it just becomes another marketing email. Now, it may look like a beautiful email, but if you don't have those three components or you're missing one of those components, again, it's not really going to produce the results that the campaign is intended to produce. And the goal in all of this is to make sure that you're not creating just more marketing material. You want to create very specific, intentional marketing that feels more relevant, personal, and actionable for your audiences. And the beauty of templates is that they can create efficiency. And that's the name of the game, right? We want to be as efficient as possible. But personalization creates the connection that we're looking for. And I want to just pause here for a moment. If any of you have any questions as we're going through this, because really, again, it's kind of a small, intimate audience here, just go ahead and put your question in the chat, and I'll get to that. All right, so today's example, we're going to follow on what we established in last week's training. And in that training, we use the example of a buyer, an active buyer prospect in your database who is searching for a home in Northeast Santa Rosa. Now, depending on where you are, you can, drop your own location in there. But for our purposes today, we're going to focus on that audience that we established last week. So we've got an audience of active buyers looking in Northeast Santa Rosa. And the value that we want to deliver to them through this campaign is that there's a newly listed home in the area that they may be interested in. And we want to have them take some action on that. We want to have them reply with their thoughts about that new listing and or schedule an in-person showing. So that's the framework that we're going to be using today as we go ahead and build this template. So, as I mentioned, the template is there because it creates efficiencies, and that's great, but it is just the starting point. The template is there to give us structure. It's already been designed in a certain way that we can leverage that design. And the beauty of the templates in Rechat, as you'll see shortly, is that there's a lot of different designs that you can choose from. And you want to pick one that really kind of either represents your brand as close as possible. If you branding yourself and really trying to promote your brand, or it's just a style that you personally like, and then it communicates the message in a way that is pleasing to you. And then, of course, the template does provide speed in that it is already, for the most part, I would say 90% designed for what you want to do. The goal in all of this is not to redesign everything. The goal is to make those intentional changes that are going to improve the relevance of the template. And I just want to pause here for a moment because I'm sure you're seeing, like all of us, like I do, like all of us here, you're seeing a lot of these templates come out now. The one big thing that we're seeing as far as adoption of the platform is that people are really leveraging all of these templates in their marketing efforts. So the just listed, the open houses, the price reductions. We're seeing all of these things come out now. And a lot of them are basically the existing templates with the listing information just, dropped into the placeholders for them, which again is totally fine. The beauty in all of that is there's a very easy way now that you can get that information out, which we didn't really have before when we were on the Moxie platform. So in one sense, the efficiency behind Rechat and the template structure is incredible, but there's more opportunity behind that now. All right, so what are we going to do today? So we're going to jump into Rechat in just a moment here. So today we're going to take that campaign with that buyer prospect looking in Northeast Santa Rosa. There's a new listing that just came out, so we want to make them aware of that, and we want them to take action. So here's what we're going to do once we jump into Rechat. We're going to choose a template, a just listed template. We're going to personalize the message in that template. And then, there's to some degree, we're going to be able to brand it to you and your personal style. And then most importantly, before you actually send out this email, and it's not necessarily going to go to one person. Maybe it is going to go to one person, but maybe you have a number of people in your database that are looking in Northeast Santa Rosa. So this potentially could go out to multiple people in your database. So you really want to make sure that everything is correct, that any links or anything like that you've got in there are working properly. So you always want to review before you send. And then ultimately, you want to save that because if you're going to be doing a recurring campaign where anytime there's a new listing that's popping up in Northeast Santa Rosa and you want to put that in front of your buyer prospects who are looking in that area, you're going to be able to reuse this template over and over and again. And then we're going to have a sample message that we're going to put in there and customize that so that it's going to be personal and relevant to them. All right. So with that, I'm going to just jump over here into my Rechat account. And this is actually my Rechat account. So it's not a generic training account. So you're seeing my actual account here. And so the first place that you want to start when you jump into Rechat is you want to go into the marketing center. So right here on the left, maybe yours is expanded a bit, the marketing center. Just go over here and select marketing, and that'll bring you up to the main marketing center. And then you can see all across the top the different categories of marketing um, collateral that you have available to you. These happen to be my listings right now. That's what populates right down here. So, as I mentioned, for our purposes today, we're going to be promoting a just listed property that came up in Northeast Santa Rosa. So, you want to start out by going to the top and hovering over this category, which is properties. And you can see that there's all these different types of subcategories there. So, coming soon, just listed, so on and so forth, right? In our case, we want to choose this subcategory here of just listed. That's your campaign. So we're going to choose that. And again, maybe many of you, all of you have been here before, and that's great. So hopefully this is relatively familiar to you. We are going to focus just today on the email campaign. But as you see, you have all of these different platforms that you could build a campaign around for social. Maybe you want to do a social post, right, to maybe even a broader audience. Um, Either it's like an Instagram post, or you want to put a story out there, and you've got videos that are pre-developed and everything, and you can customize that. For our purposes today, we're going to just focus on the email campaign. So as I mentioned, there are a significant number of pre-populated templates that are in here for you to use. And, sometimes a lot of choice is not necessarily a great thing, because I just read this incredible article where it said, we are in an age where we have, endless choices that are available to us. And as human beings, our brain really begins to shut down when we have, in many cases, more than three choices. The ability to actually choose and to not be um, uh, hampered by the fact that I don't know which one to choose, what's the right choice. It really begins to degrade after about three or four choices. So I just say that because look at all of the different choices that we have here as far as a template that you can use. So again, go through this, figure out what works best for you, and then just pick one. So for our purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and look at this. You can kind of actually scroll through here and see it. And you're like, oh, does that look nice? I like this template. So we're going to go ahead and just select this template. So it's going to come up. It's going to give you a larger preview of what this template looks like. Say, okay, yep, I think this is good. So, and the other cool thing is you can, um, when we get into the editing part of it, you can actually toggle between what it would look like on the desktop and what it would look like on a mobile device. So let's go ahead and select this template. So, as I mentioned, there's a new listing that popped up in Northeast Santa Rosa. So when you select a template, it's going to populate here with all of your listings. Well, if you don't have a listing, that you want to promote, what are you going to do? You're going to promote a new listing that came up. So in this case, you want to go and you want to enter in the MLS number. I would say go ahead and enter the MLS number. I've played around with just putting the address in, and sometimes it just doesn't populate as it doesn't populate. So go ahead and put the MLS number in there. In this case, I've already pre-selected one, so I'm going to put that number in here, 32605949. And it'll pop up with that actual listing. So I'm going to select that listing, and then it's going to take me into the editor. So right away, it drops all of the information for that listing in the template. So if you didn't want to go any further, you could stop right here in this and send this thing out. But as I said at the beginning, you want to make this message more relevant and more personal to the audience that you are directing it towards. So there's a lot here. And again, we're not going to redesign everything, but there's a few things that you probably want to redesign. So first and foremost, some of these templates they're all built by W, right? Some of them are locked in terms of what you can and cannot change. In this case, you can't change the logo here. So for some of you who may have your own personal branded logo, this is a template that maybe, you might want to rethink if you wanted to include your branded logo. And I'll show you an example of that on some of the stuff that I do. But in this case, we're going to leave it there as W real estate. We're fine with that. Right off the bat, we get the address and everything of where this property is and the MLS number. Now, if we're sending this out to our client, maybe they don't necessarily need the MLS number in here. So you can add and remove things to this template, which is the beauty of being able to tailor it. So let's just say, you know what? I don't really need this MLS number in here. It kind of takes it away. So I'm just going to hover over this thing. I'm going to click it, and it pulls up a menu. One, you can actually, modify the text with this menu up here, or in this case, you can actually delete it. So for our purposes, I want it to be a bit cleaner. I don't need unnecessary information. I'm just going to delete this element. So it takes it out. And then, we want them to know that it's just listed. Maybe you want to make that a bit more prominent. So you can, again, click on here and highlight this thing and say, you know what, right now it's, you change the font size, it's 24. I really want them to know that this is, just listed. So I want to really make that prominent, even more than that. Maybe I want it to really pop and I want it to be bold. And you know what? I want them to really see this thing. So I'm going to make it red. As an example, might not be your style, might not be your brand, but I just want to demonstrate to you that you have the flexibility to, customize and tailor this thing, right? Then you go down and, there's the image of the house. And what's really cool about this is if you just click on this image, it brings up all of the images that are in the MLS, and they're all right over here on the side. You can scroll through here and you can select an image that you think might be more appealing or might draw more attention to this email from your audience. So while this is a lovely picture of the front of the house, personally, I don't think it's all that compelling, right? It's just the picture of a front of a house, right? Pretty generic. But I think that this image, which is this really interesting pergola, it's got a really interesting, sort of feature and design to it. It's not even the front of the house. It looks like it's the back of the house, but yet there's something about this that for me seems more interesting, more compelling. It might stop my eye more so than just a generic image of the front of the house. So I'm going to choose this image. So I've already customized this, in a few easy ways to make it more appealing to my audience. Now, here's one thing that I'm going to always stress and recommend that you do. Because this is not your listing, if it's not your listing, it's always appropriate and frankly, I think professional to give credit to the actual listing agent. Because right now, if you sent this out without any real sort of acknowledgement, somebody could potentially think, oh, look at you've got the same image down here. You can actually delete these images if you don't want them. I don't want that image, so I'm going to delete that. Um, Somebody could think, oh, this is your listing. It's not really your listing. And I think it's just professional courtesy to let people know who the actual listing agent is. So one of the things that I always like to do is to give that credit. And the way that you do that is you can add a text box under the image just to make sure that, your recipients know who is the actual listing agent. So if you go over to your side panel here, you see these various menus. And if you click this basics menu, these are the basic elements, the building block elements of the template. So you just expand this menu and all of these different features. And trust me, you can spend a lot of time in this thing and really play around with this stuff. And it's fun. I've been doing it. But for today, I'm just kind of giving you the basics. So we want a text box. So we just grab this little text box right here, this text element, and we just drag it on. Oops, we just drag it onto the image of where we want it placed. And you see this green line that shows up here. That's where the text box or the text element will place. So I'm going to just release that. And now I've inserted a text element here. So then just like anything, you just click in it and you can edit it. So what I always like to put is that the listing courtesy of, and in this case, I know it's David Chen, and David is with W Real Estate. So that way you give credit to the actual listing agent, right? Now, you can play around with this, if you want to make it a little fancy. Maybe you don't want it to be as prominent. You want to be professionally courteous, right? By putting it in there, but maybe you don't want to make it quite as prominent. So, you know what? Maybe you can size it down a little bit, give it a little flair, maybe make it a little, italics or something like that. But now you've got the right attribute associated with this listing, right? And then you've got the specifics of the house. And again, these are all pulled directly in from the MLS listing. So before you get too further down, you got to think about we're trying to send a message to our audience here. We've got all of this information here, right? But, there's nothing about the message. We haven't personalized this message. So I think before we get any further, maybe a good idea is to insert another text box because now I want to put my message in there, right? So I'm going to put another text box in here. I'm going to grab it and I'm just going to bring it over, and wherever that green line goes, that's where I want it. I'm going to put it in here. And now I've got a new text box. So as we said earlier, we have a message that we want to, put in there. So this is the message that we came up with. Oops, let me go back. Sorry. Goodness gracious. A new home just came on the market in Northeast San Jose. I'll type it in. A new home just came on the market in Northeast Santa Rosa. So I have the message over here. Came on the market in Northeast Santa Rosa. And I wanted to make sure you saw it. Based on your interest in this area, this property may be worth a closer look. Okay. So we've given them the value. This is the value statement, right? And the other thing that I neglected to do here. So we want to personalize this thing. So right at the beginning of our paragraph, scroll down a few. Hi. And then we want to personalize this to your contact's name. So if you go over here in this menu, over to the right, you see a placeholder option. So click this placeholder option, and what it's going to do, it's going to put in there this ability to customize, use these different fields in your contact record. It'll pull that information in. So in our case, we want to pull in the first name because we want to really personalize this message, right? So we're going to pull in the first name. And so now I can put a comma there. Now, whenever we send this out, whenever you send it out to your database, their first name is going to automatically populate in there, right? And as I said, if you're sending it out to, maybe a half a dozen people, you don't have to worry about customizing each name. It's automatically going to do it for you, right? Um, as far as like making it a bit more personalized, you see these all the time. These messages that come out. Hey, check out this beautiful new listing. Contact me today if you want more information, right? That would be a very generic way of trying to communicate this message. If you look at the message that you're actually delivering, hey, this new home just came on the market in Northeast Santa Rosa. So right away, they know that it's relevant to them because that's the area that they're looking in. I wanted to make sure you saw it. So let me pause there for a second because in most cases, your clients are probably already searching. They've got their Zillow searches set up, their Redfin searches, whatever platform of choice that they use. They're more than likely going to have already seen this property if it came on the market, even a few hours earlier, right? That's not the point. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. That's not the point. The point is you want to stay in front of them. So even if they saw this home already because it popped up on their Zillow feed or their Redfin feed, that doesn't matter. You're sending a very personal message to them, a very personal campaign to them, letting them know that, hey, I'm thinking of you. I saw this home and I think it might be worth something something to consider based on what you're looking at. So don't worry that, oh, they probably already seen it. It's, what's the value in me sending that to them? The value is that you're staying in front of them. You're communicating to them that you're thinking about them, that they are top of mind for you and in turn, you want to be top of mind for them. That's why you're sending this. Don't worry about you know, if their Zillow alert already showed them this home. And so we've given them this value. We've personalized it. We've given them the value statement in why we're delivering this to them. The next thing we want to do is incorporate that call to action, right? So in the paragraph, just, scroll down and say, simply reply with your thoughts or let me know if you'd like to see it in person. Thanks, Tim. All right. Simple sentence right there. Simply reply with your thoughts or let me know if you'd like to see it in person, right? It's a very simple call to action, but it's very specific, right? So think about oftentimes what you might put in there, what you see all the time. Hey, if you have any questions, let me know. Very passive. You're not really telling them to do anything. You're just saying, hey, if you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to me. Give them a very specific task. Simply reply with your thoughts. So, in a way, you're telling them, you're inviting them to tell you what they think about this home. And people love to tell you what they think, right? People tell you what they think all the time, right? So tell me what you think about this home. They're more likely going to respond to you by saying, oh, you know what? I saw this pop up on Zillow. Yeah, I did a quick scroll. I didn't really, it didn't really resonate with me because X, Y, or Z. Okay, great. great data points. These features of this home didn't resonate. So, if there's another home that comes up with those similar features, maybe that's not going to be the right fit. But anyway, people will love to give you their opinion or their feedback. Or they're going to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, thanks for sending this. I saw this pop up on my Zillow feed or my Redfin feed, and I scrolled through it, and it really is kind of appealing. Yeah, I think I would like to go see it. Um, I'm available, Thursday afternoon at 3 if that works for you. Boom. Because you've given them very specific calls to action, now your chances of them responding in the way that you want them to respond is going to be greatly enhanced simply by changing a couple of things and being more intentional on, the message that you're trying to deliver and the action that you want them to take. All right. So that's, in a nutshell, that's how you can customize this generic template right here. If you want to get even more, specific, and again, we can go through an entire section, an entire training class, probably an entire morning, really diving into all the unique, things that you can do, all the editing and editing features and tools that you have. This is one like, just if you look at it, you've got this big gap right here between your message and the details of the house, right? Maybe you don't want that big gap. So you click on this big sort of container here. And trust me, it took me a long time to, get used to how this all works. But once I started getting the hang of it, it's pretty easy to begin to manipulate these things in a really cool way. But you have these two elements that come up here, top padding, which is this area up here, and bottom padding, which is this area down here. Maybe you don't want this big gap be up here. So you can just pull this lever over and it kind of, reduces that padding down there, right? Something a little bit more that maybe you want to do is maybe red is not your brand color, right? Maybe you don't even like red. So you can click on this button and right down here, you can customize it. One, you can see where it goes to. So it pulls up a link. And because we pulled in the property information, it automatically links to this listing in Rechat. So you don't really need to do anything about that. But the beauty of it is you didn't have to go find the link. The link automatically was there for you. So if your client clicks on that link, boom, it's going to take them right to the broader details of the property. And that's another thing. When you're sending out marketing information like this, you don't want to give them everything. You want to give them just enough to pique their curiosity. Again, think about any marketing that you see out there. They're not telling you every single detail of the house or of the product, right? They're giving you just enough information to make you say, wow, that's really kind of interesting. I would like to learn more about this. If you give them everything, there's nowhere for them to go. So, think about that too. Give them the link, but you don't have to give them every single element of the home, right? But just again, if you want to customize this, maybe you want the font to be a little bit larger, a little bit smaller. You don't like that color necessarily. You can go down here, background color. I'm more of a dark gray guy, right? Let me go ahead and put that in there. Boom. You want to keep the email relatively short too. We have very short attention span, right? I don't need this picture. This picture doesn't do anything for me. I'm going to get rid of this picture, right? Um, about the property. This pulls in whatever is in the MLS description. You know what? If there's some key things that your client is looking for in a home that um, is something that you want to draw to their attention, you don't need all of this other stuff. Maybe you just, edit this thing down and says, hey, it's got it's sitting on, 9/10 of an acre, or, you got a new refrigerator, whatever the case may be. If this, you don't need all of this information in there. Maybe pick out just a few things. And this is again, you can customize this on your own. Hey, this property has got some really cool features that you really like. Here they are. About property. This is a little pet peeve of mine. I see these come through all the time. About property. That's not even like proper English, right? Just change it. About the property, right? And then you can customize this. And again, you know what? I don't need another picture. I don't want them to, I don't want to show them everything. I just want one picture that's going to pique their interest. And then your information automatically gets pulled in from your profile. So again, it's somewhat customized and branded to you already. The one thing I will tell you is always check your DRE number. For some reason, it just pulls in the data, the number, which I understand. So I always go in here and I always say DRE license, da, 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 just to make it a bit more accurate, right? And there you go. There you go. Now you've customized this in a way that, kind of makes it a very compact message. You've designed it in a way that hopefully is going to grab the attention of your audience. You've customized it and you've given them the value and the call to action right there in a very simple way. Before you do anything, you want to just make sure that it's going to look good both in a desktop format as well as a mobile format. So you go up here at the top, you just toggle between these two formats here. So in this case, let me see what it would look like if somebody's looking at it on their phone. Automatically adjusts, go down and look. Hey, you know what? Everything looks pretty cool. Um, Yep, I like the way that this looks. It's good to go. So I'm going to go back over here. The next thing you want to do is make sure that it's all going to work properly. I mentioned before, don't just go ahead and send it. First, test it. So up here, you want to hit this test, send a test email. So just listed email prefix. It's going to go to me. And basically, this is what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and hit send. And then in a couple of minutes, it's going to pop over here and it'll actually give me and there it is, just listed preview. So I'm going to go ahead, open this email. Okay. Does it look like I want it? Okay. Two beds, two baths, view the property. So with all the W templates, this is hyperlinked to the W website. So if you click on that, it'll open up the W website. Okay. Um, got the thing because it's just previewing to me. There's no name in there. When it goes to your recipient, the name will populate in there, right? Okay, that's everything that I said. There's no typos or anything like that. I just want to make sure that it's going to link to the right location. Boom. And there's the listing. So now here's all of the information, right? You've whetted their appetite. You've made them curious. Now they can go there and they can see all the specifics of the home. Okay. So as I'm looking at this, yep, that looks really good. I'm happy. Here's all my links. These are all pulled in from your profile. So if you've added your social links or anything in there, they will pull in and they will populate. They will click right over to your social links. So to me, that all looks really good. I'm happy with that. So I go back to Rechat and I say, okay, save and continue. So it's going to save this template that you've now just customized. And this is where you will send out the email, right? And if you've tagged your audience correctly, this is where you would, let's say you've got, tags that are they're buyers and the location that they're looking is in Northeast Santa Rosa. So you could go over here and hit tags. So let's say buyer. I've got a buyer and I don't have a location tag. I haven't set up my database like that. But maybe I know that somebody's looking in the next, they're currently looking right now. So maybe I want to tag, that time frame. Again, for the purposes of this demonstration, you would have somebody here with a Northeast Santa Rosa tag, perhaps. And then the subject line, just listed in Northeast Santa Rosa, something like that. And then you can hit send. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to send it to those people right now, but you get the idea, right? Before you hit send, I would encourage you to save this as a draft because then it becomes a permanent document. Like, let's say you really like the look of this. This is a template that you would use over and over again. That's the point of today's training, right? First, save it as a draft. And then if you go back to marketing history, history is where all of your marketing and all the things occur. These are all the things that have been sent. And here's all of your drafts. So now you've got, here's the draft that went out. Here's the draft. So you can use this over and over and over again. You could send it right away, um, or you can save it as a draft and use it over and over and again. Because if you want to use it again in a different campaign, or you want to send it, maybe there's another new listing that comes out next week. Say you want to send these new listing things every week to your database of buyer prospects looking in Northeast Santa Rosa, you can just create this template and then once a week send it out. Just update it with new listings, right? All you have to do is duplicate that, and it'll take you right back into the editor or it duplicates it. And then you can just edit it again and go right back in and change the listing. So I know that it was a bit of a whirlwind, and I really kind of just touched on the surface level stuff of the editing capabilities. Um, but it's a pretty powerful feature. It's a really great way to stand out. If all you want to do is just send a generic template out there, you're just one among several thousand agents who are doing the same thing. Stand out, be different, differentiate yourself. And I know that a lot of agents are relying on their office administrators to send a lot of this stuff out, and that's fine. Your office administrators have been trained up on this stuff, and they're pretty capable of making a lot of customizations for you and everything. But at the end of the day, you're the one who has to determine what the message is that you want to send. So even if you're relying on your OA to create these emails for you, these campaigns for you, that's fine. But you're the one that's going to have to, come up with the messaging, come up with the design that works best for you. There's a few examples that I wanted to quickly share with you. I'm going to switch over here. There was one that I saw came from an agent up in Lake County, Shelley, the other day. I thought it was pretty cool. So she sent out a broker tour. And, she took a template that was in there and she really customized this thing specific to this property. I mean, look how very custom this is, right? That's her brand, her style, the whole thing is right there. So there's a lot about the property, see? There's a lot that you can do with these things. And it just takes some time to get in there and learn, the capabilities and the features. So, but I think this was a great example of being able to customize a template. Now, if you want to go even further, you can you can really dive deep into customization. You can really get very involved. I'll show you one last one. I know we're over time here, but I think it's worth kind of showing. Where am I? Here I am, back to Rechat. This is one that Rachel and I did for an upcoming Twilight Broker Tour this afternoon, by the way, from 4 to 6 in Santa Rosa. You're more than welcome to attend. So this is one that whoops, let me go back to that. Can I open it up? No, here's the draft. So we tailored a template to be very specific for this particular listing. We were able to incorporate, my branding logo, our information here. So, you can get very, very detailed with how you want to customize these templates. Again, what I shared with you today was simply just, the basics, but there's a lot more that you can do. So I always like to include a quick win for the week as a way of hopefully incentivizing you to go in and try some of this stuff. Go in, first of all, think about the campaign that you would either like to send or would like to have in your arsenal of things that you would want to do. But go in, choose an existing template and begin to play with it. Personalize it for a specific audience that you want to communicate with in your database. As I said, before you save it, confirm that it clearly answers the questions, right? Who is receiving this? Who's my audience? Why should this email matter to them? What is the value or the opportunity that I'm communicating to them? And then, most importantly, what do I want them to do? What should they do next after receiving this? So spend some time, get in there, play around with it, and really, start to learn about how you can leverage the capabilities that we have now to your maximum benefit. And hopefully, the takeaway from today is that, effective marketing, an effective campaign is not simply about sending more messages. We are inundated with messages every single day. Don't just send another message, right? Send a more relevant message. Send a more personal message that is targeted towards your audience with a very specific value to them and an action that you want them to define. That's the strategy that you want to strive for. The process of doing that, choosing the template, personalizing it, branding it, reviewing it, and saving it turns that strategy into execution that you can then repeat time and time again. And lastly, as I said earlier, the templates are there to create efficiency, but intentional personalization creates the engagement that we want from our prospects and our clients. So that is today's training. Hopefully, you guys got something out of it. And if there's any questions that you have, I'm more than happy to talk about those things. I've been really playing around quite a bit with the editor and learning how to manipulate the templates. I'm actually going to be sending all of my monthly newsletters now out of Rechat. I was doing it with a third-party provider before, but I was able to customize a newsletter template that's completely branded to me, and it's going to be it's going to be great. So there's a lot you can do with it. Like anything, like any new tool, like any new technology, it takes time. You have to devote the time to get in there, to play around with it, and to just learn it. The more you do, the more capabilities you're going to have, and the more you're going to be able to leverage the tool to your greatest advantage. So again, any questions before we ring off here?
I have a question regarding when you put listing courtesy of, what if it's another brokerage?
That's totally fine.
Same wording.
Yep, same wording.
Okay.
Yep. And if you want to, I mean, all you really need to do is just put it in there as a professional courtesy. Some people may not. You don't have to. I just think it's a good practice and just out of professional courtesy. Um, so yeah, if it's
Okay.
another brokerage, yeah, listing courtesy of, Tamara Burrell, Compass.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mhm. Anyone else? All right. Well, thanks again. I appreciate you guys taking the time to participate in this. Next week, we're going to be talking about flows. So flows in Rechat, if you maybe you've already been experimenting with flows. Flows are sort of these automated drip campaigns. So we're going to take the idea of a campaign. We kind of been focusing on a bit of a one-off type of campaign. Next week we're going to transition and talk about flows and how to set up an actual flow that's more of an ongoing effort. Um, and then the fourth class in this series is will be focused on um, analyzing, looking at the insights of your campaigns and how they're performing. So I think it's a great series. It's really kind of leveraging. So the first series was all about building the foundation in your database in Rechat. This series is all about being able to activate your database, engage with your database. So that's what's upcoming. All right. And again, these are all recorded. If you want to go back and watch it again, there'll be a link that comes out later today or tomorrow. And then all of these videos are on the W Real Estate YouTube channel. I learned that the other day. So if you ever want to go back and look at some of these old trainings, they're on the W Real Estate YouTube channel. All righty. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you next week.